Today we are going to actually look at counseling skills. Okay, it's very interesting class. One thing that makes counseling online difficult is the skill aspect. For many years actually we were hesitant to actually put anything as online courses because of the skills aspect. Because if you don't have skills in counseling, then all the theory that we learn, all that the concepts that we learn, it is difficult to put it in practice. And that's why, our MSc course has counseling skills, and there are supervisors to look at how you're doing and sort of upgrade you, and mentor you into to become good counselor. So that's why counseling skills is very important. Another important fact, let me tell you, counseling skill is taught for 1 year. Okay, it happens in our first semester and second semester. So there are whole lot of skills that we are dealing with, and you can understand that how difficult it will be for me to put to give you an introduction of all these in just 2 days, or to put it precisely 2 hours. So it is a very difficult task, but I hope you know uh, I will be able to do justice, and I will be able to give you a good picture about all the things that is happening. Before, I'm going to show you some pictures, okay? And you have to, maybe type it out, message, or just guess. You don't have to open, your unmute yourself. You don't have to talk. You just have to guess. I will just run through the slides, and you just have to understand what you're seeing. Okay, so I'm going to show you some pictures, and you just have to notice what is going on the screen. Okay, ready? Okay, let's see. What do you see there? Two pictures. If you see carefully, you will see that there is a vase, or is it two faces facing each other? Now look at this picture. What is this? Is it a person playing an instrument, or there is a beautiful girl in the shadows? Very interesting. Now look at this picture. What do you see? Do you see a beautiful girl looking behind with a necklace, or do you see an old lady looking down with a big nostrils and with a big chin looking down? Now what do you see here? Is it a girl walking, or do you see a face emerging out from the shadows looking at you? Now look at this picture and just find out how many animals are there in this picture. If you just look at it, you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, but there are more. I will put this picture in, in our lecture notes. You can actually go back and refer and see how many are there. Now look at this picture. If you look closely, it looks like everything is moving. But actually, it is just a static, it's a stable picture without any movement. But when that there is movement, how many legs this elephant have? Difficult to count, right? Yeah, it's very confusing. Now, what is this? Is it a duck or is it a rabbit? Look at these lines. Are they parallel or is it slopey? Are they slope? Yeah. One person is looking at something and is telling that that is 6, but the other person is looking and is telling that it is 9. All these images, it is giving you two messages. And if we are clever enough, we can actually see those two messages in one shot. If you have seen this picture before, then chances are there that you are able to see these two messages in the same image. But if you are first time seeing these images, chances are there that you will get confused. But one fact is there that every message gave every picture gave two messages. Like they say, every story has two sides. Sometimes what happens is when we are listening to people, we listen from our perspective. We listen people from our lenses. And what happens is we are not able to figure out what that person is experiencing because we are not listening. We have stopped listening and we are just viewing things from our perspective. It may be wrong. And that's why it's very important, you know, to switch yourself into the shoes of the other person and to see what they are seeing and to hear what they are hearing and to experience what they are experiencing. And that is what is called as empathy. So you can understand how much important is to have good listening ear. And that's why listening is called as a ministry. Okay. I want to, show this statement. Many people are looking for an ear that will listen, but they do not find it among Christians, very sadly. Because Christians are talking when they should be listening. We talk a lot. We think that we are experts of whole life. We are experts of secrets of life. Every knowledge is in us. We are experts. And what we do is we don't listen. Now see what Dietrich is telling. He who no longer listens to his brother or sister will soon no longer be listening to God either. It is so important that we listen to people around us. It is so important that we, bring down the distraction and concentrate on the person in front of us, giving them the message that I am there for you. I am available for you. Few days back, I got a call from one of my clients asking me, I want a session urgently. If it is possible, please today itself can you give me a appointment. I said okay, I don't mind, and I fixed the appointment for night session. And as session was going on, suddenly I realized that a day before, that day before my appointment, there was a big fight in the house. And during that fight, this person, my client, slashed her wrist and was about to take her life. Now, when I realized, I could even see, through video, it was an online session, I could see that the client was suicidal. It was too much for her to take. And so she was telling this again and again. No one is, listening to me. No one is understanding me here. And as though she was crying from her heart that, will you listen to me or not? And by God's grace, you know, through that session, she was able to calm down. Sometimes when we listen to client, it is as though we are listening to God. We should never forget how important the ministry of listening is. That's why Bible says that let every person be quick to hear and slow to speak. We are usually opposite. We are always ready to give advice, as though it's like that magician's hat. Anyone asks anything who needs, we are ready to, take it out and serve it to people. No, we should be quick to hear and slow to speak. Okay, and these 2 days, the class that I am taking for you, if you can get this simple message that be quick to hear, listen to people, listen to their heart, and slow to speak, I think I have achieved, the purpose of taking the class. There is a common tendency among the beginner counselor is to, solve the problem of or difficulties of people as soon as we hear them. As soon as someone comes and tells, hey, I have a problem to tell. Do you want to listen? Automatically, our problem-solving brain gets activated. Our logical brain, which tries to solve problems. For example, when we were studying in school, there will be a math, sum will be there, and you need to get a solution. And that's what triggers when someone comes and start talking about the problems. Our problem solving brain triggers, and we are trying to solve the problem instead of listening to the person. But we forget that this same person, their problem is not coming up in one day. Maybe this problem took many months, many years to develop. There are times that I have met elderly clients who are struggling with their childhood problems. Now look at the time range, the timeline that people face problems with. And if I fix my mind to solve or resolve their issues in the first 5 minutes, everything will collapse. Because I have changed my concentration from the person to the problem. And everything will be collapsed. That's why it's very important that we relax, we slow down, and we just be there for the client, and then slowly listen to their stories. One word that you will be listening again and again from me and from others is the word story. Every person comes to you with a story. They don't come with problems, please. Okay, they don't come with difficulties. They are coming with stories, and not just one story, multiple stories. And it's just like puzzles. Now, it's the job of a counselor to listen to them and slowly put these puzzles in place so that you get the whole picture. And once you get the whole picture, sometimes that is enough. You don't have to do, solve problems, because sometimes some people, they just want to share. And once they share it out, once they vent out, everything is okay. It's like, boiling steam. And once there is a listening ear, automatically that steam comes out and they are okay. So always remember, relax, slow down, and listen to the client story. Okay. Now, importance of counseling skills. skill. I started by telling how important counseling skill is. We should never forget counseling skills are like nuts and bolts. Okay, it is the engine of helping relationship. We should never forget that. Put a good example that came to my mind. In the hands of a surgeon, the tools that he takes is very important. Those tools are very common. You know, in local or lay language, it is not. These are not big tools. There is a knife. There is something to pluck. These are all regular tools. But in the hands of surgeon, it is very important. Now, when you go through the skills, you will realize, these are some of the things that I am doing already. But when you learn counseling skills, we learn these skills so that we use it appropriately. That means when I'm using a skill, I will know what will be the consequence of it. I will know why I'm using this skill. And that's why counseling skill is very important. I also gave this example of surgeon, doing surgery. When I have to tell the counseling, the importance of training in counseling, there are many people, especially in India, because we don't have a licensing system. We don't have a government body who is supervising everything. There are many people who promote themselves telling that I am doing counseling. But look at the medical field. Can someone just promote themselves telling that I am surgeon? No, they will be behind bars. For example, the reason why we don't do counseling courses online, and for example, we have a PG diploma in counseling psychology, and there are 2 residential courses in that. And in the 2 residential courses, one of the courses counseling skills. Now, why we are not doing it online is, for example, if you are going into the operation theater and the surgeon comes to you and introduce himself or herself to you and tells that, okay, I am graduate from this this university through online. Now, how many of us will trust him? How many of us will trust her that he has learned how to operate through online? It is impossible. And that's why counseling skills is not online. Actually, it is offline training. Let me put this very clearly in front of you. Okay. Now, why it is important for counselors to learn these counseling skills is because we should never forget that we as counselors are touching the souls of people. Not just the physical body, we are touching the souls of people. And that's why we need to be trained and equipped, and we need to train ourselves in all these counseling skills so that we can draw out the client difficulties, concerns, issues along with their strengths so that we can resolve their problems. And that's why it is very important to learn these skills. Now, let me jump into another topic. When we talk about counseling skills, it is all about communication. Without communication, we cannot learn counseling skills. Okay. Now, just to give an intro about communication. Communication is a two-way process which involves a speaker and a listener. Okay. There are 2 people involved. One is speaker and a listener. Communication itself is a whole big subject. We are not going to focus on that. But what we are going to focus here is, usually when communication is taught, it is usually, taught how to communicate properly. The focus is on the speaker. It is on the speaker, how you will speak properly. But when it comes to counseling, the focus is on the listener, how to listen properly. Now that's where the whole thing is differentiated. We are going to focus here on how to listen properly. Now that's what is the focus of these 2 days. Now, just to give a brief intro about communication, the main element, I know many of you might have already done some short or mini courses on communication. It is not difficult for you. Main element forming communication process includes encoder, message, channel, receiver, feedback. If you have laptop or desktop in front of you, you can easily understand what is encoder. Encoder is where your keyboard. Receiver is the screen. There is a inside processor which is processing. That's where the whole storage house is there. So the whole communication process is in front of you, and the same thing God has given in our body. But what is great communication? What is something which makes communication good or great? Great communication leads to understanding, intimacy, and mutual appreciation. Or to put it in a very simple way, Friday when Abraham Thomas sir sir was taking the class, he was talking about 3 core conditions. Okay, I hope you remember that. If you don't remember, go back and see that class once again, which is understanding, intimacy, and mutual appreciation. Okay, now I want you to take one moment and look at your own communication skills. Listen, just remember the feedbacks that you have received from people, what they talk about you. Are you a good communicator? Do you listen properly? If you have any doubts, if you go to Canvas, I put an assessment there. There are 2 assessments actually. You can actually fill that assessment and figure out, where do you stand. I'm pretty sure most of you will be, in the good area only. No, very less people will be in the poor communication area. Most of us will be in that good communication. But remember, our focus is not on the speaker. Our focus is on the listener. How well you can listen. That is our focus. So when we look at communication, there are 2 parts of communication which we'll be looking at. Actually, there are 3 parts. Okay, one is non-verbal, another is verbal, and there is a written communication which will not be focusing in these 2 days. We will be focusing on 2 parts, that is non-verbal and verbal, which is very important when it comes to counseling. Now, read this. Verbal communication only contributes to 7% of actual message. Okay, if you feel that you are a bad speaker, let me tell you, there is a good news. Only 7% actually, people listen to the communication. That means, okay, it's a serious business for us. I am lecturing with you. I'm pretty sure maybe 40 to 30% are already thinking something else in their mind. They are not listening to my verbal. Okay, chances are there, but maybe you are a lucky one who is concentrating on my voice very clearly. There's no distraction, and I am happy that you are sitting there. But look at that. The remaining part of the message is communicated in following order. Paraverbal communication is 38%. That means your tone, the way you speak, your pitch, your volume, that contributes 38%, the way you articulate. And the non-verbal communication is 55%. Very important. One of the problems during this lockdown was that, counselors are not able to see clients face to face. So we have to depend on modes like telephone. We have to depend on modes like online video conferencing. But the drawback of that is we are missing, half of this 55%. That non-verbal communication, when one person is talking, the way their body language is, the way their face speaks, the way their body speaks, it's completely missing. But when you look at counseling, it's very important that we start reading the non-verbals of the people that we are listening to. Not just listening, hearing or seeing the non-verbals, but it is very important that we ourselves give a very good non-verbal communication. How to communicate non-verbally that you are there for them. How to communicate to a person that you understand and you accept them. It's very important because that's where the whole relationship is built. The trust factor is built. Communication 55%. So let me take you little by little. Today, what we will be doing is we will be focusing on the verbal aspect. Okay, all the aspects in verbal. And tomorrow, again, important class on non-verbal. It is very interesting. Okay, but today we'll be looking at the verbal aspect. Now, when it comes to the verbal expression of communication, we are going to learn today active listening skills. Now, we have heard of listening. We have heard of listening skill. Now, what is this active listening skill? Now, active listening skill is, when we are listening to people, we should understand that listening is not a passive process. That doesn't mean that, you sit in front of a people, fold your hands and just don't talk anything. You're just there looking and staring at their face, no expression, nothing. It's not like that. When you're listening to people, it's you are in active mode than passive mode. Okay. Now look at this statement. A good listener will concentrate and put efforts into understanding the spoken words and underlining feelings that individuals are communicating. You are actively involved in the interview. That means you are not just listening to the words, you are listening to their heart also. You're listening, you're trying to feel their emotions. You're trying to what is happening in their thoughts, what people, what you cannot see exterior, you are trying to concentrate on the interiors, the thoughts and emotions. And that's why listening is an active process. Now, active listening demands you participate fully by helping person clarify, enlarge, and enrich their story. What it means? It means that, when a person comes to you, when they are sharing their story, we need to understand that everyone comes with their narrow understanding of what is their story. And when you start asking questions and when you start engaging the client with conversation, they are able to build up on their story. They are able to enlarge. They are able to clarify, and they are able to enrich their story. And that's why it is called as active listening. Now, there are some things in active listening which we'll be learning today. Now, the first one is encouragers. Okay. We need to put some verbal and non-verbal means to encourage the clients to continue talking. For example, if you are sitting in front of a person who who is talking to you, and you as a counselor, you sit like a stone without any movement, it will become very difficult to talk to them. Sometimes we as facilitators feel the same way when it comes to Zoom. We don't get any feedback. We don't see some heads nodding. We don't see some yes. There is no expressions. So it becomes very difficult to talk. So we have to imagine in our mind a student in front of us to interact to them. And that same thing happens in a conversation. So it's very important that we give some verbal expression. For example, or non-verbal expression. For example, head nods. Okay. Okay can be also true. Yes. All those are actually verbal expression. Now you can see here keyword. Now what is keyword? For example, someone is, you are asking a question to someone, asking them, how are you? And they say, I am fine. And you say, fine? Now that's a keyword you have picked from the line that you have heard, and you are repeating it back to the person. Now, as soon as you put a tone and you reflect it back or you repeat it back to the person, they will start talking about fine, why they are fine, what makes them fine. Okay. The next one is restatement. Now, what is restatement? For example, you are asking this question, hi, how are you? And the other person is telling, I'm fine. And then you say, I'm fine. You are repeating the whole sentence or the whole phrase, maybe a short phrase, back to the person so that they start talking about that phrase. Okay. So a lot of things can be done when we have this encourages, this verbal and non-verbal encourages. But don't forget, let me tell you one secret. Appropriate smiling and interpersonal warmth, a warm feeling, are the major encourages. I know each one of you have good smile. Please use it. Not sarcastic smile, a slight smile when you are facing a person, when you are receiving the person, when you are listening the person. Not that, when they are telling some terrible story, you are still smiling. Not like that. Appropriately smile. These are major encourages which will help people to feel comfortable, and they will keep talking in the interview. And that's what we need. We want people to talk more. How much people will talk more, that much we will get information. Never forget that. Okay. For example, if there is one thing that we do in our MSc courses, we ask our students to record the complete interaction. We call it verbatim. Now why we do that is just to see how much counselor is talking and how much client is talking. If counselor is talking more, that means your listening skill is very weak. If client is talking more, that means you are in the right path. So encourage so that they talk more. Now the next one is paraphrasing. Okay, what is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is simply reflection of content. When a person is talking to you, in between, you tell them back the cream of what you have heard. It's feedback or the essence what you have heard till now. Now, why we do that? It is just to tell them that you and the client are in the same track. Okay, you are both going together. You are both together in the same story. Not that client is somewhere and you are somewhere. So it's very important that we reflect in between, and tell them the essence of what you have heard. So the counselor shortens and clarifies, gives the cream of what they have heard till that time back to the client. So paraphrasing happens again and again. Okay, whenever there is a pause, sometimes there will be clients who will talk much. Okay, it is okay in between to stop the client and give a paraphrase. Tell them this is what I have heard till now. Am I correct? Get a feedback from the client. Let them also know that you are listening to them. And that's how important paraphrasing is. Paraphrasing is not parroting. Please understand that. It is not repeating the exact words back to the client, but it is shortening and giving the cream, the essence, okay, of what you are listening back to the client. Now that is what is called as paraphrasing. Now the next one, very important, questioning. Without questioning, how we can proceed in counseling. So very important is this skill, to learn this skill, questioning. Now there are two types of questioning skills. Okay, one is open-ended and one is closed-ended. Now it looks so easy, right? Actually, it is easy when you look at this. There are some questions which will open the client, and there are some questions which will close the client. The questions that will open the client are open-ended questions. The questions that will close the client are closed-ended questions. Now, for example, when a person, for example, you might have heard this question. Uh, you meet a stranger or you meet a friend. You will ask, "How are you?" Now, what reply do you get? We get an automatic reply that is, "I am fine," or "Fine," "Okay." One word answers we are getting. But if the same thing, if we put it in an open-ended and we ask them, "How was your day?" So chances are there that the person will not stop in one word. They might have to elaborate, they might have to tell more than one sentence or two sentences to give you the answer. And that is what the aim of open-ended question. It helps persons to open up. For example, if I say, "Tell me what happened," instead of that, if I tell this question, "Can you elaborate more on what took place that day?" Chances are there that you might get more information, not just one or two statements, but you will get more than one or two statements. Now, that is the purpose of open-ended questions. Okay. Closed-ended question is when you are asking a question and you want some specific or concrete answer. Maybe one word, two word, one statement answer. For example, what is your date of birth? It is very concrete and specific information. Now, when you ask closed-ended question, automatically you will get specific and concrete answers. Now, in counseling, we need to understand that there is a ratio between the open-ended and the closed-ended questions. Okay. For example, when a stranger is coming to you, you want them to open up. Okay, that is your intention. So naturally, the ratio of open-ended questions will be more, and ratio of closed-ended questions will be less. But as soon as the trust is built, and you want client to, give you some concrete example, you increase the ratio of closed-ended questions more, so that you get concrete, answers. You get concrete information. Now, for example, another example I can give is when, usually they say that counseling is for 45 minutes to 1 hour. Now, some people will ask question, "How will you stop in 1 hour?" For them, I usually reply like this: we need to understand that, what is our limit of listening. We cannot just keep on listening for, hours and hours. There is a limit that we all have. We all have a clock. After that, automatically we'll switch off. There will be tiredness. We will feel weak. Now, once we understand that our limit is going to touch, for example, it's almost 45 minutes. You are listening to a client. You have got a lot of information, and now you know that you have only 10 minutes duration. Automatically, you will increase the ratio of closed-ended question. Now, as soon as you increase the ratio of closed-ended question, we can expect that the conversation will come to an end. Okay, and that's what is achieved through closed-ended. So I hope you got the purpose and aim for both open-ended and closed-ended questions. The next one and the last one is summarizing. Okay, now what is summarizing? Summarizing is basically, it is almost similar to paraphrase, but summarizing is used at the end of the conversation or the session that you have. After the whole story, maybe at the end of the session, you summarize the whole thing, what all you were talking about. You summarize it in few words. Now, again, you don't have to, start preaching at that time. You just are giving a summary of what was the conversation about. So usually it happens at the end of the conversation. Okay, that's the time that we use summarizing. Now, when you meet the client again, for example, you're meeting for the second session, then you start with a summary. You tell that last week we were talking about this, and we ended up at this point. So you give summary of what happened in the previous session. Okay. So summarization is used at the end of the session, beginning of the next session, and summarization is also done when you're moving from one topic to the other topic. Like I said at the start, client comes with multiple stories. Usually we think that, okay, client will come with only one problem, one difficulty, and you will solve that one problem and one difficulty and everything is done. No, client may come with multiple problems, multiple issues. Now, once you deal with one issue, one topic, one concern, you move to the next concern. When you are moving to the new concern, you summarize what did you do, till the end of that topic. Finish it, terminate that concern or that difficulty, and then move to the new one. Okay, so summarization, like I said, it is similar to paraphrase, but it is used to clarify and distill what the client has said over a long time span. Okay, so this is what we have learned today. We looked at active listening skills. Okay, and what is active listening skills? Active listening skills is where you are actively involved in the conversation. You are helping the client to elaborate. You are helping the client to enlarge. You are helping the client to clarify the story that they are bringing to you. Now, under active listening skills, we learn encouragers. Now, what are encouragers? Encouragers is simply some of the means that a counselor uses so that the client can talk more. Now, encouragers can be done through verbal means and through non-verbal means. Verbal means can be, for example, using okay, all those are verbal means. Non-verbal means can be head notes, your posture, all that comes under non-verbal means. And then we looked at paraphrasing. When we are listening to a story, let us not be in a passive mode, but in between, let us also reflect back to the client the essence of what you have heard till now. What did you hear from the client? Let me tell you, chances are there that you can go wrong. Okay, your understanding about the issue will be different, and what client is telling will be different. That's why we ask for the feedback. That's why we, at the end of paraphrasing, we usually say, is it okay? Is it correct? And when you get the feedback, you will know that both you and the client are going together. You both are in the same part of the story. And that's why paraphrasing is very important. The next one is questioning skills. Now, questioning skill is of two types. One is open-ended and one is closed-ended. What is open-ended? These are questions which will help to open up the client. They will give you more information. Okay, they will not just stop in one or two statements, but they will talk more. Okay, and what is closed-ended? Closed-ended questions are when you need concrete information, when you need facts, when you need something, which will give clarity to the story, and when you have to close the conversation. That means the client will not have much space to give you information. Now, one of the questions, people ask is what to do when a client is not talking. Okay, what can we do? Now, questioning skill is one of the things that we can use. When client is not giving you more information, we need to recheck the way we are asking questions. Sometimes we want to ask a proper question, but it is all there in our mind. When it comes out in an improper way. We think that we are asking an open-ended question, but when we articulate, it comes out in a closed-ended manner. So it's very important. Let me tell you one secret of counselors. Okay, good counselors always memorizes their best questions. When you see that one question is working out, that means you are articulating a question in a proper way, and it is hitting the target. Whenever you ask that question, you are getting the information that you need. Now, once you know that question, memorize it. Okay. Same thing with closed-ended. Once you see that it is hitting the target, it is doing exactly what you are intending with, then memorize those wonderful questions in your mind. You can always use them again and again when it comes to different people. And that's where you can build questioning skills. Okay. And the last one, what we saw was summarizing skills. When every conversation is done, at the end of your meeting, at the end of the session, you summarize and tell to the client that this is what all that we were talking today, and this is how we ended up. And the next time when you meet the person, you start with summarization. You tell them that previously we were talking about this, and that's very important. Why we do that is because between two sessions, usually there is 1 week's gap. Usually counseling happens once a week. Only in emergency, counseling happens twice a week. It doesn't happen in a day 2-3 times, or every day. It doesn't happen like that, because there is so much of emotional involvement. There is so much of process that is happening. It becomes very difficult for the counselor and the client to process it. That's why the day's time is given. And during that time, sometimes the whole story can change. And that's why it's very important to connect the first session and the second session. It is very important to connect the second session and the third session. And that's how counseling becomes a process. It is not just one session, but counseling, that's why it's a process, because you're connecting every session as though, you're connecting the puzzles together. And that's why summary becomes very important. Now, these are the verbal, communication skills that we can learn. Now, how to practice this? Now, this question will be coming in again. I have just explained this in front of you, how to practice it. Now, let me tell you how to practice it. You need to practice it in your daily life. Don't wait for counseling session to begin in front of the client. Don't do the practice. It should start in your day-to-day life. Now it is lockdown. Now you cannot go. You are interacting with limited people. You can start with whatever people are there around you. It can start in your own family. When your child is talking to you, when your family member is talking to you, use the skills and see the effect of it. See the difference when you're using it, when you're not using it. And then you will see how effective it is. And slowly, when you practice it again and again, it will become natural. That artificial element will slowly go off, and it will become part of your nature, where you're automatically encouraging, automatically you are giving paraphrase, you're automatically asking appropriate questions, and you are automatically giving a summary of what you have heard. And you will see that whole listening process will be beautiful in itself. And that is what is verbal expression of communication that we saw today. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at the non-verbal aspect. Now, there are many skills in the non-verbal aspect. Like I said it at the start, it is 55% of our communication. So it's very important that we as a counselor have appropriate, non-verbal, and also we slowly read the non-verbals of our clients. Okay, so and tomorrow again we will have lot of activities. I will try to make that session as a fun session so that we can also test ourselves, learn in the process. If you go to Canvas, you will see that there are some additional material that I have added. There are some videos. Okay, I will be talking tomorrow about that video. Go through that. Make sure you finish the assessment and come tomorrow for a wonderful session of non-verbal expressions of communication. I hope you had a good time, and I will wait for you tomorrow. Have a good evening. Thank you.